What if the less you think, the happier you are, and the more you think, the lower vibrational attachment and resistance is within your own energetic field? And what if the key to thinking better thoughts is not the answer, but the key is actually to think less thoughts? Now, there is an epiphany that I have had recently, and there is this concept that I've learned that is more than just a concept. It's a way that you relate to life itself that has completely shifted the way that I see myself, the way that I see the world, the way that I relate to other people. And it's a consciousness shift that I want to share with you, because I believe that if you apply it in your life, it will completely change how you feel and how you relate to the most important relationship of all. And this is the thing that keeps so many people trapped in resistance, trapped in thinking the same thoughts over and over again, feeling the same emotions over and over again, attracting the same people over and over again. And it's because of this. Now, thinking is the result and is the cause of all suffering. Think about that for a moment. Thinking is the cause of all suffering. Now, when you think of enlightenment even, this was a game changer for me when I understood this one concept. It's that of the levels of consciousness. When you see the levels of consciousness, which are shame, fear, guilt, anger, all the way up to willingness, and then you have reasoning, which is the intellect of the mind, and then love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. You could say that the lower vibrational emotions, there is more resistance and more thinking that happens, because that is survival. As you elevate your frequency, what happens is you think less thoughts. Now think of love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. At the level of love, what goes through your mind? When you're feeling love with someone else, you're feeling unconditional love, and you're with someone else, what are you thinking about? You're probably not thinking of anything. You're probably just present to the moment in appreciation. You're not thinking. Love, and this is why, by the way, enlightened people have said, I've read 2 or 3 different enlightened people we consider to be enlightened, of a very high level of consciousness. And one interesting thing they've all pretty much said unanimously is that enlightenment is not something you attain. It is something you realize you are. Which means that it's not something you have to try to become. It's not something you have to strive for. And in fact, the striving for it is most likely the ego's desire that's caught up in thinking. But it is something you realize. I remember when Osho was talking about his enlightenment experience. He's a controversial figure, but no doubt at a certain point in his life, I believe he had a level of enlightenment inside of himself, or when people would approach him, they'd just start bursting in tears and stuff like that. He's someone that may have attained a certain level of enlightenment and then kind of got trapped back in the game of the ego and of form. But nonetheless, Osho, he had this enlightenment experience, and it's interesting. What he said happened was he was trying so hard to be enlightened. He was doing this very specific morning routine where every day he'd get up at 3 or 4 in the morning, he'd go on a 5-mile walk, he'd meditate under this tree, he'd come back, he'd eat at the same time every day. He didn't drink alcohol, he didn't smoke, he didn't do anything. He was so disciplined, so focused on enlightenment. And then what happened is one day, he completely let it go. He said, screw it. And then there was, his friends and family were there. He was eating food he would not normally eat. He was willing to drink wine and stuff. He let go of the pressure and the resistance he was creating around trying to attain enlightenment. And then one day, he just decided to go to this tree, and he sat down, and he just started crying and laughing at the same time. He realized how stupid this whole thing of enlightenment was, because he had this enlightenment experience, and he realized that it's like our natural state of being. He rose above thought instead of below thought. And he just started laughing at how ridiculous the whole thing was, of how he was trying so hard to be enlightened. And he says it's a realization, not an attainment. So what I found interesting is it's something also other enlightened people have said. It's not something you attain. It's something you realize. You already are it once you rise above thought. So it's not something you have to think yourself into being. Now, here's another story for you. I haven't shared this in a while. I went to a conference years ago in 2019 with this channeler named Bashar. It's a little esoteric for some of you that are just watching this. But anyways, listen to this, these like recordings. Went to this live conference where there's like 150 people there. And you put your name into this lottery thing so that you can ask a question to Bashar. And basically, I go to the front and I ask, his name's Bashar, this question about reality. I ask him about Jesus and Buddha and enlightened people. And what I said was, what are the belief systems of Jesus or Buddha or these people that have been considered enlightenment? Because he says beliefs create reality. Well, if beliefs create reality, what are the beliefs of Jesus or Buddha, these people we consider to be enlightened? And what he said was very interesting. He said they didn't have any belief systems. They knew thyself, which is interesting because we hear a lot, know thyself. And he said they knew who they were, so they didn't have to have these belief systems. They simply knew. Now, what's interesting is as we elevate our own level of consciousness, it becomes less about the beliefs and the thoughts that we have and more about the level of beingness. And in the level of beingness, which means we are at one with God or at one with the universe, whatever name you want to give it, you know everything. There's nothing, you are one with the infinite creation. You are not separate from it. Think of it when we think of that scale of consciousness as thinking is the separation between you and the divine. It's the separation from you being at one with God or the universe. And think of even the function itself of thinking. Thinking itself is a survival mechanism. Out of all the species on the planet, we're one of the few that thinks. Most of them are so present to the moment, they don't need to think. They just are. Yet, humans, we're able to give ourselves stories, beliefs, categorize things, compare ourselves to other people. And when we do these things, we separate ourselves from the natural state of love, joy, peace, and enlightenment that we naturally are. So what you could say is that when you look at survival, think of thinking as something we use to survive. What do I need to do to survive? What do I need to do to survive? When you rise above thinking and surviving into thriving, you are then in a flow state. Like right now when I'm making this video, I'm not thinking. I'm in a flow state. And because I'm in a flow state, it just kind of naturally comes through. Now, I believe you watching this video and everyone has the ability to connect to something that is greater than themselves. I'm not special in this way. Everyone has the ability to do so, especially when you have the intention of adding value to other people. But the more there is this intention, because think about survival, think about anger, guilt, shame, fear. The mind gets very active because it's trying to survive. Now, the challenge is that most people are identified with thinking, they're attached to their thinking, and because they're attached to their thinking, they're in survival mode. And they're recreating similar familiar pattern dynamics from when they were kids. And they call it safe. Sometimes it may feel safe for someone that grew up in a narcissistic household where someone is a narcissist. It may feel safe to be around someone else that's also a narcissist. Because the unknown is scary. Maybe that safety also comes from someone else telling you what to do, something you need to measure up to, and anything other than that feels like anxiety. I know I had that experience for a while after when I was 17 years old and my dad divorced my ex-stepmom. All of a sudden, I didn't have the control of someone in my life that was manipulative and controlling. And I had this freedom. And I remember in that freedom, there was anxiety. There was a feeling like I can have friends now, I can get enough food to eat now, I can do all of these things that I was deprived of before, but there's something that feels very anxious about that. I feel anxious about it. And then what I might have done is my mind was like, let me find other people that can replay this dynamic subconsciously. So I attracted an ex-girlfriend that was very jealous, and then I attracted that of a manager that was the same person as my ex-stepmom. There was always someone in my life to reflect back that energy because that's what felt safe. But safe is a concept, something my shadow work coach used to tell me. Safe is a concept. Safe is not a feeling. It's a concept. What you really want to feel is an opening of your heart. And if you really opened up your heart and felt more free, you may not have these people in your life reflecting that back to you. Either they will phase out of your life or you'll attract new people into your life. But understand that the key to this epiphany, this awakening, is to realize the difference between these two things right here. This completely changed my perspective. This is what caused my consciousness shift back in 2012 when I went through my awakening. It was this insight right here. There is a difference between thinking and thoughts. Thoughts are nouns. Thoughts may come into your mind, they may leave your mind. They're neutral. You can say this is a positive thought, this is a negative thought. That's thinking. That means you're thinking and judging it and elevating and comparing it. Thoughts just are. Thinking is a verb. Thinking is the act of looking at the thoughts and engaging with them. Now, most people stay in thinking their entire lives, which means they're thinking and they're in survival mode. When instead you could be in flow. You could be observing your thoughts and creating more spaciousness within you. When I learned this concept in 2012, I began to feel spaciousness inside of myself. I then realized that I may think thoughts, I may feel emotions, I may have certain beliefs, but I am not my thoughts, I am not my emotions, I am not my beliefs. That was when I began to become free. Because then you have a more neutral perspective of it. But when you think you are your thoughts, things will be very heavy, very serious, and a lot of resistance, and you will have to think a lot. You may think thoughts, you are not your thoughts. You may feel emotions, you're not your emotions. When you can begin observing the thoughts neutrally, that's where your power really begins, because yes, thoughts create reality, but thinking is what destroys it. Thinking destroys it. It butchers it up, tries to conceptualize everything. And remember, thinking is a survival mechanism that our species has to stay in survival. When you're in your highest form, someone in a flow state, athletes in a flow state, there's no thinking. You've been in states before where you're probably in a flow state. What is an artist thinking about? When you see Bob Ross, when he was like painting back in the day, maybe he was thinking happy thoughts. Isn't that what he would say? But he was also he was just in a massive flow state. I don't think he wasn't analyzing everything. And it's interesting too, people that are overanalyzers, very analytical people that overthinkers, are people that are trapped in survival mode. And they believe the thinking is going to get them to feel safe. The thinking is going to solve their problems. But what overthinkers need to hear is that doesn't work out that way. The key is actually thinking less thoughts, creating more spaciousness inside of yourself, observing yourself more, because remember that scale of consciousness, as we look at it, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment, you're not thinking. Or there's a lot more space in between the thinking. You're just present to the moment. So the key, and you've probably experienced this before. Have you ever had a lot of things on your mind, and then you're trying to like force something to figure it out, and then you say, you know what, I just need to take a break. And you just go on for a walk. And then on the walk, you get the insight. Why do most people get incredible insights in the shower? Because Normally, in the sensation of water, in the relaxation, there's less thinking. When you go for a walk, you may experience the same thing after a certain period of time. You think less and less. Some people like to run. There are things that put you into a flow state that lessen the degree of thinking. I was watching this thing in this new Apple Vision Pro thing, which very interesting gadget. It's like augmented reality. There was this, inside it, there's this this 15-minute movie of this woman where you're literally seen as if you're there with her in Norway, walking 3,000 feet in the air on this little slack line. And she's got this little thing that like protects her, but it's kind of janky. And she's walking just on this little line, 3,000 feet in the air. And she falls like 5 times, but she's got this little thing that catches her. But it's like, you want to know why? She talks about her thought process of going through it. And one thing is very apparent. There is no thinking when she is on that slack line. And I think that's the ecstasy of it, because some people are addicted to that adrenaline rush. They're addicted to rock climbing, these very dangerous situations, because there's probably certain states of consciousness they get to shift to by not thinking. That's how much we may be craving not thinking, is we'll put ourselves in these crazy situations that help us feel adrenaline and present to the moment and alive so that we can lessen our thoughts, because then we have to. And then we feel really high. You don't have to go to that extent. You don't have to go to Norway. You don't have to walk 3,000 feet in the air on a little slack line to feel no thinking. You can do so with practice. And now here's the game changer. And I'm going to give you some practical things you can use in your life that will help you to attain this level of consciousness, this relationship to your thoughts, because ultimately the most important relationship in your life is not the one with your family, it's not the one with your friends, it's not the one with anything other than your thoughts. It's your relationship to thoughts that is the most important relationship in your life. And if you believe you are your thoughts, if you believe that you need to think them, and there's survival mode there, then you'll keep creating more of survival reflections in your life. Now remember, the mind wants to survive. The ego wants to survive. As you elevate your vibration, you can then begin to thrive, but that thriving comes from more spaciousness, less thoughts, and allowing the divine to flow through you. Because remember, you are connected to source energy. You are connected to God. You are not separate from it other than your thinking. Your thinking is what separates you from the kingdom of heaven. So understand that you can be in a higher vibrational state by thinking less. And one of the keys to thinking less is to learn how to observe your thoughts and not try to control them. That was my epiphany back in 2012 when I went through my awakening. I observed them and then I just let them be there. And what happened is, with time, they came through less and less, and I related to them differently. And then that created spaciousness. And then I started to feel literally high a majority of the time. And to clarify, I'm not saying I'm enlightened. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I felt like about a 3 was my base point. I would smoke or drink. It'd bring me up 2 points, and then I'd drop back down to a 3. After this realization and meditating every day and observing my thoughts and creating this spaciousness inside of myself, I went to feeling about a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. I literally felt high a majority of the time, and I thought it was too good to be true. Maybe this feeling's going to go away. And yes, it would still fluctuate down if I was having a bad day or I was frustrated. But basically, it's like as I fall below thoughts and they have power over me and there's resistance, then I would feel like maybe a 5 or a 6, and then I would move back up. It's through observation of thoughts. And when you let them be there, they begin to go away more and more. But then the goal is getting into more of a flow state, finding out what you're passionate about, and moving into that energy. And doing things for an end of themselves, that's another part of it. Instead of doing things as a means to an end to get something, do it because you enjoy doing it. And as you begin practicing creating more space throughout your day, more space in your life, you will find that you begin to create more of this higher vibrational energy inside of yourself, which is already who you naturally are. And you know that quote that says, "I think, therefore I am"? I want you to rephrase that. I think, therefore I suffer. Thinking is what separates us from God, from the universe, from our connection to source. And the key is becoming aware that you think thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. And the key is in this observation mode. So what are some things you can practically do to create more spaciousness inside of yourself? Because I'm telling you, as you start to do this work, you start to become more aware of how things affect your energy. You become aware of how certain people affect your energy. You become aware of certain habits affect your energy. And it's almost like you can't continue to remain asleep any longer. It will shift different aspects of your life. And as you create that space, there will be more divine insights. Instead of you having to egoically survive and think about what to do next, you will get these ideas that will come through to you. You won't have to think. It'll be through inspiration instead of desperation. So here's some things you can do. Something that you can do it's also, by the way, I have a free course inside the High Vibe Tribe. It's a $1,000 course for free that will show you step-by-step how to do everything I mentioned with you. There's a whole section on thoughts, and there's a vibrational detox where you audit your own energy and the attachments so that you become lighter and more clear and you let go of what's keeping you trapped. And there's meditations that walk you through all of this. It's completely free in the High Vibe Tribe. You can click the link below to join, to check it out. And just go in. When you go into the courses section, the classroom is what it says, and then you'll see High Vibe 101 there, and you could check that out. But the key to this is to look at how does for example, the food that you eat affect your energy? How does the environment that you live in affect your energy? Now, this doesn't mean, by the way, that you need to change every little thing inside of your environment. It may mean that you change your relationship to what you think about your environment. It may mean that you become aware, though, of where does your attention going for social media? If you realize through observing that you are in your phone 12 hours a day and very attached to, addicted to the phone, you can then begin to taper that off. Create the spaciousness there. If you realize when you're around certain people, you feel a certain way, you can then realize, do I want to keep being around this energy that's keeping me in this, that's rubbing off on me? Where are your attachments? Where do you fall below thought? And what you want to do is you want to make a list of the things that affect your thinking and that cause you to kind of trigger you to go into a certain rabbit hole or on a tangent of thinking. And what you want to do is you want to become aware of the things that impact your energy the most. I could see a while ago when I was watching, I remember a certain type of Netflix, or it was an HBO show. I could tell that when I watched this show, I'd have really gnarly dreams at night, and I'd be thinking about it a lot. Eventually what I did is I watched it less, and then the season ended. But there are times I've also stopped watching certain shows or engaging in certain levels of social media. And as I do that, I create more spaciousness. Also, throughout my day, what I do is I'll take little breaks. And I'll go lay down. Focus on my breathing for 5 or 10 minutes. Now, understand that reality is this neutral thing. That we have a perception that overlays beliefs onto it, but the awareness, how do your thinking can now be something you become more aware of, so you can then start to create more space in your thinking, and that will cause a shift in consciousness. That will cause your whole life to reveal a new dimension of itself to you. And meditating every single day just for 5 or 10 minutes will change your life more than anything else. I really believe that. And in that High Vibe 101 course, there is a daily meditation that's 8 minutes long that you can listen to every single day where I guide you through little practice, and then also you focus on creating what you want in your life, the emotion of already having it, through this like higher vibrational feeling of gratitude, so that you're able to like pattern your energy field for the unknown. So if you want to check that out, you can check that out below. And remember, I think, therefore I am, is more so I think, therefore I suffer. So rise above thought and understand you may think thoughts, but you are not your thoughts.